Time. Bob Ross believes in happy accidents, and so do I. But when it comes to producing extraordinary coffee, controlling every variable and understanding what each one contributes is key. Up until the last few years of scientific research and advancement, we'd attribute most flavors to happy accidents. But now, more than ever, we have the ability to pinpoint exactly where flavor comes from. Let's begin. Coffee I'm serving you today is a result of the happy accident of red and yellow Bourbon cross-pollinating. Lucy Fernanda Galindez produces exquisite pink Bourbon on her farm, Finca Buena Vista, located at 1,800 meters above sea level in San Agustin, Colombia. Now, since pink is a recessive trait, Lucy has to work painstakingly hard to ensure that she's producing only pink Bourbon. She processes all of her coffee as fully washed on her small wet mill. Now, if we were to cup this coffee blind today, it would cup like a beautiful washed geisha, loaded with great florality, stone fruit, and an elegant acidity. But while preparing for this competition 2 years ago, we wondered if there was any way to pull out even more flavor by processing it slightly differently. So we reached out to the processing mastermind, Diego Bermudez of Finca El Paraiso. Now, after consulting both with Diego and Lucy, we all decided to give this thing a shot. Now, after much coordination with Lucy and her team, we picked the pink Bourbon at its peak brick count early in the morning. Then, our importing partner and friend, Jose Hadir of Osido Coffee, loaded up that cherry in his truck, and he drives it 3 hours over the Andes Mountains. Now, when you arrive at Diego's farm, it's almost like a scene cut straight out of Breaking Bad, loaded with bioreactors, microscopes, and lab coats. Now, once Diego and his team receive the cherry, they instantly get to work. They first wash the cherry with ozonated water to ensure that they sanitize it, and that they have 100% completely controlled fermentation. Next, they place that cherry into a bioreactor for 48 hours at 65 degrees Fahrenheit, pressurizing the tank to 20 psi. Now, at the end of this first stage of fermentation, they collect all the juice, also known as biomass, and they use it to inoculate local yeast and bacteria at a specific ratio. They then pulp the coffee, place the pulped coffee, all of the juice, and those enzymes that they use to inoculate back into a bioreactor, and we repeat the process. 48 hours, 65 degrees. This time, we continue to increase the pressure throughout the duration of this secondary fermentation. Now, this is where all the magic happens. It's where all those physicochemical and biochemical reactions take place. Now, at the end of this secondary fermentation, in order to lock in all those beautiful flavors that we just created, Diego does what he calls a thermal shock. This is where he heats up the bioreactor to 105 degrees. He then places it, crashes that fermentation in 50-degree water, locking in all those beautiful flavors. Now, this works on the same principle as blanching vegetables and placing them into an ice bath. Now, lastly, Diego takes that coffee and he puts it in his proprietary dryers that work off the principle of mass transfer. This is where it's dehumidifying the coffee, drying it from the inside out. Now, when I set these in front of you, I'd ask that you would first assess the crema, and please wait to taste. Now, there are up to 40% of volatile compounds that never make it into your cup. By using the principle of compound chilling, I was able to capture all of those beautiful flavors, making sure that they end up in your espresso. Now, let's write down some tasting notes. You're going to experience a canned peach. Think about your grandma canning those peaches. You're going to get Rainier cherry, oolong tea, and a lingering 80% dark chocolate. Now, for the tactile, it is medium in weight, it is round, it is soft, and it's pleasantly coating. It has that pleasant lingering dry dark chocolate finish. Please follow your normal judging protocol, stirring 3 times, placing your spoons in those little white cups. Enjoy.
Give a big round for those espresso drinks.
Thank you so much. A couple more seconds, we'll move on. All right, you guys ready to move on? All right. Now, Diego's processing isn't by no means a happy accident, but what does it do to the flavor? It takes all of those beautiful notes that were inherently in Lucy's coffee, it laser focuses them, turning them up to a 10. By Diego understanding what each variable is, he's able to control it and manipulate it, just like we're able to control and manipulate a roast profile on the Stronghold. And we roasted this coffee for 9 minutes, giving us a development time ratio of 16%. This slightly more aggressive roast allowed us to penetrate the coffee, pulling out loads of sweetness without covering up that beautiful acidity and body. Let's write down some tasting notes for your milk drink. You're going to experience a cooked peach, but that cooked peach is only going to come almost right when you're writing down those those scores. So please wait till the end of that. It's going to start out with butterscotch that's been slightly salted. You're going to get that chocolate mousse, and then right at the end, right when you're writing those scores, that's when you'll get that cooked peach. Now, in order to match the precision of processing and growing of Lucy's coffee, we had to turn to milk cryodesiccation, also known as freeze drying. Now, freeze distilled milk is delicious, but I found the process to be very inconsistent from batch to batch. Milk cryodesiccation, on the other hand, is a controlled process that yields the exact same results every time. Now, this 24-hour process begins by freezing the milk, and then we apply gentle heat while keeping it under a vacuum, which just allows us to remove all the water through sublimation, leaving only the fats, the proteins, and those sugars, of course. Now, this concentrates the milk up to 900%. Then I take 30 grams of the cryodesiccated milk, and I use it to rehydrate. I use it 300 grams to rehydrate the milk. Now, this not only increases the sweetness of the milk, but it also gives us a wonderful, silky, velvety texture. But the thing I love the most, that's where I found the most harmonious balance between Lucy's delicious coffee and the sweet, creamy milk. Once again, you're gonna get that lightly salted butterscotch, chocolate mousse, and a pleasant, lingering right on the end, right as you're gonna write that score, that cooked peach. Please enjoy.
Big round of applause for the milk course.
Thank you. All right. You guys about ready to move on? Now, for your signature beverage, I want to create something that was equally repeatable, just like Diego's processing and Lucy's and our roasting on the stronghold. Now, since fruit is very inconsistent with its flavors and its sweetness, I decided to turn to the sugars and the acids that we find in fruit as my ingredients. This allowed me to transform all those beautiful flavors in Lucy's coffee into something completely new that's very specific to hers. So we started with 80 grams of the espresso that we chilled in a hybrid chiller without dilution. Next, I'm adding 20 grams of a fructose simple syrup that is both sweet and tart. I made that by blending equal parts of fructose and water. Now, fructose is a sugar that we find in fruits that gives us a very clean sweetness. It's going to take that Rainier cherry and turn it into almost like a hard cherry candy. Now, since Lucy's coffee has a fair amount of malic acid, in order to transform and add a new note of blood orange, I just added 0.2 grams of citric acid. Now, if we add acid to something, we've got to add some fat to balance it out. I'm being a good Midwestern boy. I'm going to add some butter. So I'm doing that by blending equal parts of melted butter, water, and sugar. Now I need to stabilize it. So then I blended in 2 grams of the emulsifier called the 210S. That's going to give us a nice slick and coating texture. Now, for the dilution part, I'm adding 170 grams of Fever Tree tonic water that we've allowed to off-gas this whole time. If you add CO2 to coffee, it creates carbonic acid, and that's going to give us some off flavors that we definitely don't want. So that's what's been happening over here. And the quinine in that tonic is going to give us a new note on a long, lingering, pleasant, clean grapefruit finish. Now, to remind us that it comes from pink bourbon, show you how transformative this drink is, I'm adding some odorless, tasteless, scentless, which is also odorless, red food coloring. Now, to homogenize this thing and bring all these flavors together, I'm going to be nitrogenating it. That's going to give us a nice and pillowy texture. Now, one of the things I love about Lucy's coffee that I did not want to lose is the beautiful peach aromatics. Now, in order to recreate those peach aromatics, add a white peach tea that had some cryo-desiccated peaches in it. I'm going to be adding some dry ice as an aromatic element. Are you ready to write down some tasting notes? Thank you. You're going to get that blood orange, that hard cherry candy, pomegranate juice, and a pleasant lingering grapefruit bitterness on the end. Now this drink is going to be served slightly chilled, but not cold. I do not want to cover up any of those flavors. Now I'd ask that you'd wait until I call time to drink. And when I call time, you're going to pick up the cup, you're going to take off the lid, you'll take in those beautiful peach aromas, you'll then swirl it 3 times, and then you'll take a minimum of 3 drinks. I want you guys to really get comfortable with this drink. Now, although there were some happy accidents along this journey, such as discovering the pink bourbon mutation, connecting with new colleagues, discovering new processing methods, it took 2 long years of hard work collaborating with 2 competing importers, working with 2 farmers, one very traditional being Lucy, and one very progressive being Diego. All of us sharing the same goal. Basically, producing an extraordinary coffee that we could repeat year after year together. I believe that if we want to continue to move this industry forward, it's going to take intentional innovation through collaboration and cooperation from all of us. I hope that you enjoyed this journey as much as I have. It's been a pleasure representing Lucy, Diego, Coffee Quest, Osido, and Archetype Coffee. You guys are truly my happy accident. Thank you for being here. Time.
Big round of applause, Isaiah Sheese, Archetype Coffee. Come on over here.